Father's Day is such a special occasion, and to celebrate, we want to shine a light on a few dads who became fathers through egg donation. Brent and Scott share their heartfelt stories highlighting the joys and challenges they encountered along the way. Egg donation was always going to be part of Scott and his wife's story, but even knowing that, navigating the journey had many roller coaster moments. For Brent and his wife, egg donation became a reality after many years of struggle. We get to hear how each couple navigated their own journeys as well as reflect on their emotional journey. Brent and Scott emphasize the crucial role of support from and for their spouses and the value of finding a community of people in similar journeys, ultimately sharing the profound joy of finally growing their families. Join us in celebrating these inspiring fathers and their incredible stories. And happy Father's Day to all the dads and future dads. Me, you, and who? Who knew it would take more than two people to have a baby? In a world where infertility is no longer a taboo topic, this podcast will take you through all of the different aspects of surrogacy and egg donation through the lens of many who walk this journey in different ways. My name is Whitney Hall, and I am a two-time surrogate, now turned surrogacy coordinator for Egg Donor and Surrogate Solutions, the very agency I used when I chose to carry for two amazing families. With this podcast, it is our goal to help guide and support you as you learn about what it takes to grow a family in an alternative way, as well as hear inspiring and beautiful stories of how this path has changed lives forever. We can't wait for you to hear about just one more way happy families are created every day. Well, yay! I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for taking the time, Brent.
Absolutely excited about it.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Okay, so let's just dive right in. You are a dad to your sweet, amazing kiddos, but it took us, we went on a journey to get there. What led you guys to egg donation?
Well, we were married for about 3 years. You got married, not later in life. We got married when we were about 27 and 28. So not crazy late.
No, that's not later in life.
Right. But, we're like, we want to go travel. We want to enjoy being married for a little bit. Everyone always thinks you're going to get pregnant right away, right? It won't be an issue. So we're like, let's go travel. Let's go see the world. And we're fortunate enough to be able to go do that. Going to Europe and Australia and some other things. We're like, all right, we're about 30 or 31. We'll start, trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And, sure enough, you go through it and you're like, okay, well, it's been like 6 months and then it's been like 12 months. And then it's like, well, you can't really see a doctor about it till after a year of trying. So we're like, whichever. So anyway, we started seeing doctors, after year one and, went through a couple IUIs and then we're like, all right, we got to switch course and kind of go through a couple IVFs. So we did like 2 or 3 IUIs.
Sure.
We did about 5 IVFs. And then at that point, we decided to take a break. We took little breaks in between there. I mean, this is over a span of probably 8 to 9 years. So probably 7, 8 years, I should say. But so taking breaks in there, because it's a lot on, obviously, my wife. It's a lot, me as well. Just, if you didn't know really what was going on, we kind of figured it out, obviously, going through IUIs and everything. But at any rate, so we just kind of had the tough decision. Do we want to go through adoption? Do we want to do, egg donation? Kind of what's the whole story there? And it's kind of ironic, but, our first visit with a infertility doctor here in Dallas, the first thing he said, first meeting ever with a fertility doctor, 1 year after trying, it's like, I think you're going to probably have to go through egg donation or another route. We're like, whoa, hold on. Like, this is our first time ever, it's like from 0 to 60, really quick. So we're like,
wow.
Can we just pause here? Like, sure we can't try something else? He's like, you can try other stuff, but I'm telling you. And then obviously 6 years later, we come back to him, ironically, and we're like, I think we better need to go to egg donation. So kind of full circle. But
my gosh.
I think that kind of helped us, I'm very kind of, not OCD, maybe a little bit, my wife says, but I want to make sure that I'm like checking all the boxes and making sure we're doing all the right things before we're making a huge step forward on something, right? So
sure.
Probably waited a little too long, waiting 6, 7 years, but
hindsight's 2020.
Hindsight's 2020, and to be honest, we didn't know much about that process or what's the cost going into that? What's the success rate? What's, all these things, right? That you need to make a decision. So that's kind of
Yeah.
long and the short of it. Short story long, I should say, but.
Okay, so yes, because there's so much to unpack there. Okay, so
Right.
let's go back a little bit. So you had kind of your, for lack of a better phrase, quote, classic, you wait for that year, you try, all of the things. And then you said right out of the gate, the doctor says, oh yeah, egg donation.
Right.
What was that like? How did you guys even process that?
We did it very well. We did not very well. We kind of just stepped back and we took a pause. We actually didn't do anything for a month after we got told that.
Yeah.
We're kind of like, do we need to get another opinion? And we did. We went and got some other opinions, and then, but yeah, I mean, it was just crazy. Yeah, I think we were just caught off guard, and it kind of froze us, to be honest, in the place.
Yeah.
But I think he was looking at her levels, right, and kind of knew from his past and from his history. He's been a fertility doctor for 30+ years. He
sure, right. Yeah.
I get it, but it's hard for us to understand that, right? I mean, they do it like every day, and it's like whatever. But for us, it's kind of like, oh my god,
No, it's huge for anybody to feel to be given that information. And you guys hadn't. I mean, at that point, you hadn't even done, like you said. Eventually, you did. You guys did proceed to go and do all of the IUIs and the IVFs, right. And you said it was about 6 years. So as you're going through all of that, I know, Rachel was going through all of the things as far as the medications and all of that. What was, and you said you took pauses. What was that right. like for you as a spouse, as you were supporting her, or just for you as you're kind of feeling all of those things?
Right.
As you're trying to go through this. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of OCD, so it's frustrating. I'm a perfectionist, right? So it's kind of like, oh my gosh, why is this taking so long, or why is this? And I felt bad, like I couldn't do anything for her because it's so painful for her. I mean, the shots and all the doctor's visits, and she was a school teacher at the time, right? So you're around kids all the time, right? So you don't even think about that aspect. And then also what is going on with this, we have about probably a good group of like 20 friends, and couples that we all hang out with, ever since college and going up through this. And of course, they get married and they're pregnant like in 2 months, or they're pregnant, like everyone's getting pregnant. And they usually say, like 1 in 4 has, fertility issues, right? Well, all 20 of our couple friends had no fertility issues, right? So it was like, they're all getting pregnant, and then, they're all having 2 before we have 1, and we're still doing all this stuff. We never really talked about it with anybody. There was a very select few people that might known, but we didn't really talk about it because even back then, like, what was that, 7-8 years ago? I mean, people didn't really, no one else was going through it. It wasn't as public out there. I don't feel like it is as it is even now. I don't know. Maybe it's just because more and more aware of it. I don't know, but there was no one for her to really talk to about it. There definitely wasn't anyone for me to talk to about it. So it's just kind of, you're kind of dealing with on our own, right? Which was super stressful. I think that was the hardest part, is just talking to each other and trying to figure out, okay, what are we gonna do next? But still kind of, going through life and trying to, still move forward in life and do other things that we were trying to do, right? So,
sure,
it was just a crazy time. So I think, back to your question, it's just trying to support her and support each other just through, with just us two, because no one really knew what was going on, right?
Yeah. So, you said only a select few knew what was going on. Did
right.
for you to be able to support her, and obviously I know in time she was able to support you, but it ebbs and flows. You support your spouse,
right.
However your cup is filled. What support did you find being a intended dad in a situation like that? How did you, give yourself what you needed in order to get through that?
To support myself, I think it was just, I don't know, I probably didn't do it very well. I probably focused more. I mean, I'm being honest. I mean, I probably didn't do it very well.
Sure.
You definitely get frustrated and upset about it, which is just normal human emotion. But, there were some guys I did talk to about it, and then I did find out that one of my other guys was kind of going through a similar situation. So, there were conversations that we started to have, I think, halfway through this whole process with other people, which is good. And then also our family was always very supportive. We were blessed enough to have, my brother and his wife that lived close by. My parents had moved up back to Dallas, and then her parents, are obviously close by in Arlington. So, we had a lot of support. Her brother, lives in Austin. So we had a lot of family support around it that were
Yeah.
helping us through it. They didn't know what to do, but they were there to support us, right? And to help.
Right,
So,
sure. As best as they could. As best as they could.
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you get through you go through the IUIs, you go through the IVFs, you ultimately get to the decision, okay, if we're going to do this, it's egg donation.
Right.
How did you wrap your head around that concept, I guess, a second time?
Right.
And how was that? How did you realize, okay, we are ready now?
Yeah, I think it was, God, we took a long time to decide, to be honest. I mean, it was 6, 7 months. I think we almost took like 8, 9 months off before we made a decision, just because
Yeah.
we were going back and forth through adoption. We're like, God, there's so many, blessings out there that don't have somewhere to go, right? So we thought about wanting to do adoption. But Rachel and I both, I mean, she wanted to be pregnant for, ever, right? That was her dream, is to, carry your baby and want to be able to, share with that, go through that experience, right?
Of course, yeah.
You know, especially since it was kind of egg donor, obviously it was part of me, but that still made it, obviously part of her, right? And so I think that was what was very important. That's kind of what made us make that decision that we felt comfortable with, was that, hey, she's gonna be able to carry, our children and do whatever, be a mom. Not like she wouldn't if she went another route, but what I'm saying, just go through the whole natural pregnancy part of it, which I think was super important.
Sure.
So
Yeah. So how was it okay, you've decided that egg donation is the route that you're going to take, and now, you know, you've gone through the roller coaster, I always say, of just all of the things all at once, and now, okay, you've made this one big decision, and now you're met with 1,000 more decisions that you have to make. You have this huge database that you have to go through. You, even before that, is it fresh or frozen? Is it agency? Is it independent? Is it, whatever that may be? How did you guys navigate all of that? And you specifically, maybe how did you go through kind of your thoughts on the whole thing?
yeah, I think it was getting a lot of references, obviously, talking to not only our fertility doctor and his recommendations, but also getting other recommendations from other groups. I think Rachel had gone on some forums and some other things and read up on different
Sure.
things and other research and everything. And, it was just coming to the table and just talking, best scenario for us, right? And then what were we looking for, and the timing, and kind of is really success rate, right? We've been going through this for 7 years, right? So what's our success rate look like? I think it's most important, and what gives us the most options going forward should something not work out. Is there a backup plan to that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I think going uh, going through the process we did was the way to do it, right? I mean, it gave us the most options and the most variable outcomes should something happen, that we kind of had backup plans going forward.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you yourself, you get to that database, and I know some people say they go through it together. Some people go separate.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel as you're going, you get this database of 450 people that you're looking at, like, how did you navigate that? How was that as you're sitting there kind of thinking about the magnitude of what that was?
Yeah, it was kind of surreal. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I have the word to explain. I mean, now it's kind of looks like Instagram. Like, I mean, Facebook. I don't know. I couldn't really I go through it. I kind of feel like I was looking through a yearbook trying to find like a long lost sibling or something, right? Or
Sure.
or Rachel's lost sibling. I don't know. It was. I was like, how are we deciding? Like, I don't know. I guess we'll get into this later, but like, okay, based on who we choose, like, what does that affect like 15, 16 years down the road? Like, what are they gonna want? What are we gonna want back then? Are we gonna tell our kids? Are we not gonna tell our kids? What's important to us? And basically, what Reed and Rachel did, we said, once we had the database, we're like, we're not going to tell, we're going to go through it separately, because I travel every week. And so we're separate a lot and doing stuff. And I was like, well, let's just go through it. We picked our top 5. So we'll go through and pick your top 5. And our number one pick matched. First time. So we just knew. It was like instant. So, I mean, I guess it was a blessing or lucky or I don't know what you want to say, but out of that many people to have the same number one was just crazy. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we were looking for similar features to Rachel and things like that. So that kind of narrowed it down a little bit.
Your idea of what you were thinking.
We had our geography and like our, so we kind of narrowed by geography, obviously, and then, what we were looking for. I'm in an egg donor, and it was just crazy. We matched them the first time we went through it. So,
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
But then again, even then, like after making the match, there's still a lot of thought and debate, and then you're like, okay, it says all this stuff, but is that everything we need to know? What else we have to go? And then you go through, okay, well, what testing are we going to do? What are we going to legally do, like going on the road, and all those kind of next steps you have to go through when you're signing up for it. So very complex matter for sure. Not something to take lightheartedly. So we took a while to decide it. Shocker, going through everything, but it's. I mean, it's a lifelong decision, right? So make sure it's the right one.
A big one for sure. So I would say, like, a lot of times, and going back a little bit, I know you had said it, as you guys are even saying that egg donation is the route that you wanted to go, and Rachel was gonna carry the baby, and so and all of those things. But there are some common questions and fears that a lot of people have when they're thinking about egg donation as their avenue to growing their family as parents and all of that. What were maybe some of those fears that you had, and how did you feel like they were alleviated?
My fears about egg donation itself, or just the whole process as a whole?
I mean, both and.
Yeah, I think my biggest fear, and to be honest, it still is to this day, is when are my kids going to ask, and when are our kids going to ask us to say, and what are we going to say? I mean, we agreed upon kind of what we were going to say. We went through it initially, but I think now with Rachel being more involved, and then obviously I'm getting a lot more insight to kind of, as we move farther down the line in this process, to move farther in life and our kids are getting older, I think our views are kind of shifting in that aspect. But I keep rambling, but my short answer is, it was, what are we going to tell our kids when they get older? Because I'm like, are they going to despise us? Or like, not despise us, but are they going to be so upset at us that we were lying to them or hiding the truth to them, their entire life till whatever point in time we tell them, right? So that was my number one concern, is like, how do we combat that?
Sure.
I have no idea. And going through this, we didn't know anyone who actually went through an egg donation, like that we personally knew, right? That we'd have those conversations with. So that was a very big point of conflict that we had to work through, to be honest. So.
I mean, but that's a huge question to think about. Is it's not just a means. Egg donation is not just a means to an end, and now I have a baby, and the story is happily ever after. You do have to think about the long and short of that baby's gonna become a grown up, and this is their story, and what does that mean? And that's wonderful that you and Rachel knew the gravity of that and wanted to take care in how you're going to, whatever works best for you and your family as you navigate that with, a donor conceived person. So that's huge. That's amazing. Hold on. Sorry.
Yep,
Scott's here. There we go. Hey, Scott. You did it!
Hey, think a great crew at United, and one of the most helpful parking ladies at Bush International Airport.
I am impressed because I've heard nothing but horror stories as of late. So good for you.
Oh yeah, it's the gods of business travel have conspired to get me here.
There you go. I feel like Brent can probably relate between both of you traveling as much as you guys do. I'm sure you all have your tales of woe and then your tales of triumph.
It's really nice to have a tale of triumph.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so Brent and Scott, do you guys know each other at all?
We do not. No.
Oh, hey, hi. We're meeting. What's up?
I feel like we probably do.
Yeah.
In a weird way.
Yeah, sure. You guys are part of a very cool club.
Yes.
Scott, we've just kind of jumped right in and are just kind of talking about, Brent was talking about just his, how they got to where they got, and we were kind of talking about the complexities of, just the egg donation as a whole. But I would love to, if you're able to just kind of jump in, how did egg donation even come to be for you and your family?
Oh man, so I met my wife the what I would consider the traditional way at a bar, and I was with two of my friends from Northern Ireland, and she was with two of her friends from Houston, and they overheard the Irish accents, and they were like, "Oh, that sounds super fun." And my wife ended up stuck with me.
Oh.
And she so so to get through a whole bunch of this stuff. Fast forward, and I go over to her apartment, and there's this picture frame, and there's a picture of this girl that's puffy and bloated and bald headed and in this orange Superman t-shirt. And I'm like, hey, what's the story behind that?
Yeah.
She's like, that's me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And she was like, I didn't really expect to have this conversation this quickly, but that was me at 18 years old. And she had leukemia. And thanks to her brother, she had a stem cell transplant. And
oh, wow.
to this day is I don't even think it's in remission anymore. I think it's considered just completely cured.
Oh, that's amazing.
But part of that is the treatment process was an extraordinarily aggressive chemotherapy. And she's actually a PA in stem cell transplant, and she works at MD Anderson Cancer Center, and she treats the disease that she had, which is absolutely amazing and something.
Oh, that's such a
never
beautiful full circle right there. Oh my gosh.
She could go into 1,000 other details, but part of the treatment left her unable to. Yeah, it basically fried her ovaries and everything else.
Yeah, sure.
So at that time, her mom was actually had the foresight to have part of her ovarian tissue removed, and with the idea that and frozen, I guess is goes along with that, with the idea that it could be maybe one day reimplanted or in some other way.
Sure.
And unfortunately, that technology has still never gotten there. And so when I saw that picture, it brought up a conversation, and
sure.
It became our reality. Our reality was always that if we were ever going to conceive a family, and that was always a goal of ours, like that I always wanted that. She always wanted that. If this was ever going to be a part of our journey, then the egg donation process was always going to be a part of our journey. And so on one hand, it probably was not the way that she would have scripted a dating relationship, but on the other hand, you know, what better time to discuss it than right up front, and so we knew that this was going to be our journey. We didn't know all the different twists and turns that it was going to take, and God, it took a lot of twists and turns. But it was always going to be a part of our journey, and we were really lucky in that. I feel like that we had so many friends that in so many different ways struggled with their journey towards building a family, and they didn't expect it, and it came as such a shock to them. To us, we always knew this was going to be what we were gonna the road that we were gonna walk down, and it didn't make a lot of the parts of that a whole lot easier, but at least we knew what we were getting into when we started down the path.
So you said you kind of knew what you were getting into. So you're at that apartment after you guys have met the good old fashioned way. Did you even know what egg donation actually meant?
Right now, I say that right now, I had absolutely no idea what I was getting into.
Sure.
I knew that it wasn't going to be whatever the traditional way is.
Sure, but, right.
I had no idea what I was getting into. I still would do it 100 times out of 100, but man, I had no idea what I was getting into.
Yeah, absolutely. So how was that conversation when, okay, let's fast forward, as we get to the point where you guys have decided, okay, now's the time we're going to get started on building our family. How did you guys navigate? We know we're going to have to we know we're going to have to pull in a whole team of people. How did you guys navigate that? And what did that look like for maybe you specifically?
Oh, man. So it's interesting I come to it from the perspective of the person that didn't have cancer. Right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so I recognized, I think really early on that maybe I had a different relationship with this process than my wife. And for her, it one of the things that I tried to do was be a little bit of a buffer between the volume of the process, the information,
there's so much all at once.
There's so much.
You've made a decision, and I was saying this earlier to Brent. You made a decision how you're gonna go about after having the kind of just a gamut of decisions, and then you're met with even more decisions, and it's just this whole overwhelm. And then, as Brent was saying earlier, then not only is it you make one decision, and now you have this complex aspect of it. It's it's a database of 450 plus people, and then you decide, and then it's okay, well, now we have to start talking about escrow accounts and contracts and
Man, I hadn't even gotten to thinking back to that point yet. But so I'm gonna kind of go.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go back.
So basically, we started thinking about donors, right? Mm-hmm. And I think for both of us, honestly, but especially for my wife, it was kind of emotionally overwhelming.
Absolutely.
And so I considered one of my kind of my role in there is we talked about the general parameters that we wanted, and then I went into the database. I don't think my wife ever actually logged into anything at all.
Wow. Yeah.
And what we decided that we would do is I would go in there and we would agree on some parameters, and I would filter everything down to present just kind of a more approachable process for us. And that kind of worked for us and for our I guess for our style. So, from a financial standpoint, from a logistical standpoint, and everything, there's 1,000 other things that came there. But I think the hardest part for us was, how do we recognize like the 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 financial side is hard, but the emotional side is I think a lot harder sometimes. And it, for us, it was for me to kind of take the fire hose and turn it into a garden hose, and just kind of narrow down every
Sure. So as you're taking the fire hose and turning it down to a garden hose, what was your support as you're being overwhelmed by all of the things?
Oh man. So, oh god, she's gonna hate like half of this. So the first thing that I had to kind of figure out is like, I'm not trying to find her.
Sure.
Right. I'm trying. Oh man.
Well, Brent was saying
there's 100% chance I'm gonna ask you to cut like half.
No, you're totally fine. You're totally fine. Let me give you a little bit. Let me lob it up a little bit for you. And Brent, please feel free to.
I kind of game planned a little bit of this, and this is the one question I didn't want to answer a little bit.
Oh and no, you don't have to answer
not
it.
In that way. Not in that way. She was like, you can't answer it the way that you want to answer it.
You can't. Well, let me lob it up for you a little bit. So, and Brent, please jump in. So Brent and Rachel, the way that they did it was they looked at it separately, then brought their top 5 and their ones matched. And one of the things that Brent was saying was they had certain parameters, one of them being there were some physical attributes that were similar to Rachel and geography and things like that. But I'm more asking the question, and you can feel free to answer that if you want to, but I'm more asking specifically, you're getting this fire hose, you're talking about how, it's a lot for your wife, and you're being there to support her, whether it's, hey, you knew from a very long time ago that this was going to be how we're having a family, but it's still hard, and you're being that support person to her. How is your cup being filled? How are you being supported as you're the one that's kind of taking in all of the information and trying to make it smaller for her, but you're still getting all of the information?
So I guess for me, based on where we started, I don't know that was necessarily the time that I felt that I was looking for something to fulfill my side of it.
Yeah.
I think for me, I recognize what a vulnerable and difficult situation that was for my wife, and it was just really important that for me, she felt that the decisions that she had to make there were approachable to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say that from when I started through the process, like this was not I logged into the website and 20 minutes later we had a decision to make.
Sure.
So I can say that the process it evolved as we went through everything, and
yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Our approach to it also evolved. Our decision making approach and our conversations about it changed as we moved through the process.
What were some of those changes?
So at first, we wanted to find my wife's twin.
Mm-hmm.
Right. and I don't think that's a strange concept. Like
No,
we
not at
wanted to
all.
find the same as her, which, by the way, doesn't exist.
Right.
Like, ever, unless they have a twin, and in which case it's a whole different type of conversation, probably, that we didn't want to have either. So we started there, and then we moved past that, right? Like, what's actually important to us are the physical attributes important to us, right? My wife and I both have incredibly light green eyes. That was kind of important to us, right?
Yeah.
You're given so much information that
Sure.
In the moment seems so relevant. And when you think about, like, I decided to change my mindset to, like, if I met this person in a bar, the same way I met my wife, and I found out that her grandfather at age 85 had heart disease, would that be a reason I would consider not dating her?
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
not even close. So
Yeah.
is that particular piece of information relevant? Probably not. Right? Like, you just get so much information about somebody that in any other context probably wouldn't be particularly relevant.
Sure.
That
You find the things that are important to you, and
Right.
as you're going through that, you're figuring out slowly what you thought was maybe important isn't as important as it really is as you're going through that process. Would you say that was kind of similar for you, Brent?
Yeah, absolutely. Like at first, like very similar to what Scott was saying is, yeah, you want everything. Like, oh, I do want these certain physical attributes, but does it really make that much of a difference? I mean, I don't know, right? You just want. At some point, you almost get paralysis by analysis, and you're like, okay, I had to simplify this a little bit, and make this a lot easier. We're already going through a ton of minutia and a ton of stuff, right? So I want to simplify that down to make a good choice, but let's not like get such blinders on. We aren't seeing a bigger picture here. Of what are things are going to be down 5 to the road. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, yeah, you're right. Like the heart disease and all that. Like, well, their second cousin from the stepfather or whatever has. You're like, okay, I don't know. I can't comprehend.
I don't even know that about my family, right?
Right, exactly. Every time I fill those forms out, I'm like, I think so. I don't really know. Maybe, right? So, what am I bringing to the table as well, right? So that also comes into perspective. So it's like. I mean, my big thing actually that I didn't mention to you, Whitney, is that, I was diagnosed with type 1 when I was like 34 years old, like out of nowhere. Like no one in my immediate family had it. I mean, my uncle did, my dad's mom, so I guess kind of immediate family, but like my brother, my dad, my mom, no one had it, right? And my uncle's kids, my cousins never had it, and then I get it, so it lives in you, but then something sparks it, and you're like, I've been healthy my whole life, and you're just like, oh, you have type 1. So I say that to say that, I'm looking at all these other people's history, right, health history, and here I'm the one that's going to be supplying an important piece of the puzzle here, and I have that, in me. So that was also one of my concerns, with doing all this as well, right? So
sure, yeah.
So that to Scott's point is just, stop it, don't overanalyze it. I mean, you got to analyze it structurally, but don't take scrutiny on every little point, right?
Right. You find those important pieces, and for everybody it's different, but all of them are valuable to you and your journey, and that's going to be the right thing for you and your family. No, for sure. What would you guys say was maybe the most surprising part of the process?
Can I start?
Yeah, go
ahead. The most surprising part to me was, so we ended up recognizing that we needed support in this process outside of each other. Mm-hmm. I couldn't be everything for her on this, and I didn't think I needed anything through this process. And I found out I did. And
Yeah.
So some of the feelings that we had were really unique to this situation, and they're not always feelings that you feel 100% comfortable discussing with your spouse.
Sure. Yeah.
Like let's be honest, this is a kind of bizarre situation that kind of only exists now. Right? Like,
sure.
This
It's
is not
it's new. It's very new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not,
all things considered in medical land, this is very new.
We have a gorgeous 3-year-old daughter, and she loves Frozen. Right? This is not the story of all time. Right? Like,
sure.
The little princess story. This is a very new thing, and so it was important for us to have a kind of agreed upon circle of people that we felt comfortable discussing what we were going through in the time that we were going through it, and in the moment as we progressed through the process. And what was kind of amazing to us is the more people that we opened up to about the process and about what we were going through, the more we found people who were going through a similar situation. And it was never that exact, like, hey, we also had cancer at this time and are trying to.
Sure.
But people were going through, some other fertility battle of some type, or a family planning battle of some type, and I feel like we kept, for a while, we kept this umbrella of secrecy up above us as something to shade us from the chance of disappointment. And
sure,
in reality, we were kind of shading ourselves from the shade that everybody else provided. It's kind of like having an umbrella underneath a giant canopy of trees, right? We're like, we thought we were holding this thing above us, but there was actually something else kind of covering up above. And the more that we felt, the more that we felt comfortable talking to people, the more we found that everybody else was kind of in the same boat, but like just floating off a little bit beside us. And that was really kind of great and super helpful. And there are times in the process where things don't work out, and you want the support when you're going through the hard stuff, but you also want the joy of the success when it does work. But you shouldn't shield everybody from either side of that. It doesn't have to always be everything's great. The more that we opened up to people and the more that we let people in, the more that people were able to join us in the success of the end process. And
yeah, absolutely. How, if I may, how did you, with the bumps that did happen with your canopy, how did you guys navigate that?
Oh man, it was so hard.
Yeah.
It was super hard. When you go into, how do we navigate it? Gosh, God, we cried a lot. Like,
I'm sure. Yeah.
I remember one night we just went out to a bar and probably were super irresponsible. We didn't have kids, so it was okay.
There you go.
Man, it was so hard. Like it doesn't, and like that's okay to be an answer, right? Like sometimes it sucks.
Oh, absolutely. It is okay because you're right. It does just suck.
How do
And
we
they're
handle
just
it? Like, not well sometimes. I think is the answer.
Yeah. I think that's the reality of a lot of people. Like 100%. Yeah.
Like we got through it. Like we're there. We did it. But man, like, how do we handle it? Sometimes not great.
No, it's not great for sure. Yeah, Brent, you can relate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you just get so frustrated and so angry at certain things that happen. Like I was telling you with all our other friends, not angry, but you just get frustrated. Like things are moving along, and then you keep hitting road bumps and blockage, and just like sometimes you just throw your hands up and like, I don't freaking know. I don't know what to do. Just pray a lot, or just have a cocktail. I don't know. Like, you don't know what to do. Sometimes you just gotta. That's why we took breaks too. You're just like, you have to take a break, or you're gonna drive yourself freaking insane about it. It's just kind of unfortunate, right? And like the little bumps,
the reality of the process.
Yeah, and the little bumps during it, like what I didn't know, like everything. As much as everything has to line up in a natural pregnancy, everything has to line up in a egg donation cycle as well. Like the person you pick might not be available, or if you don't do it just in time, like ours, was picked one day before we signed. And so like, oh, sorry, she just signed the day before with another couple. You can't use her. That was our number one pick. And it's also her 6th cycle, so she can't do any more after this. And we're like, oh, okay. So that was devastating. Now it ended up not the right thing, but everything worked out because eventually the other couple had to drop out for a reason, and so she was able to do our cycle. Randomly enough, how that worked out. So then you have little successes like that. You're like, oh my God, okay, it is meant to be, right? After you're just down in the dumps about it. So things like that. But yeah, you just don't know how to navigate that, and you don't know what's going to come, right? Because everything has to still line up perfectly, timing and everything. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah. What were kind of some of the surprises you encountered, Brent?
Well, I think that one was a huge one.
That's a big one, yeah.
I told you my little OCD waiting and like wanting to go through all the details. I waited, a day or two too long, and we almost lost her. And then things ended up working out, but I think it's just that, and just there's a lot of anxiety about waiting around. Like once you get the egg donor, and okay, are there going to be eggs? Like ours is on her last cycle, right? So how many are we going to get? Right? Are we going to be able to create our family we want to have? Are they all going to be healthy? I think that was the most strenuous time. Is we were driving actually to a wedding out in Fort Worth area, and our doctor called like, oh, we got all the results back, and they all they tell you all the different grades and everything. I mean, that was one of the most stressful parts. How many are good? How many aren't? Like, because, like that's the most stressful part, because you're doing all this investment. And you're like, well, if this doesn't work, then we're going back to square one almost, and we already went through IVS and IUIs and, all this stuff. And we're just like, please God, let this just work. And, that was the most stressful like time ever, is finding that out. Right. Like retrieval and, how many,
all of it. It's that
and the quality, hurry up and wait. And like I said, it's just all timing, right? So I think that was the most stressful, and kind of some of the surprising things they didn't really realize. You think it's just going to go pretty like boom, 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 but there's all stops and goes, and it's very anxiety ridden process for sure, to be honest.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. Right. So what would maybe you say to, maybe specifically some intended dads out there who are thinking about going through the process, in the middle of the process? What would maybe be some advice that maybe you would want to give to day one you?
From the very given process, or from the egg donor process?
Oh, good question. You pick.
Yeah. Our process was long. I'm not sure how long Scott's process was, but I think we went through, IOI and IVF and everything. Even though day one, 7 years previous, we were told egg donor. I think it is just getting all your facts up front about, whatever you need to do, right? Like, okay, why can't we do IUI, or why can't we do IVF, or why do we need to do egg donor, or why do we need to do surrogacy, or why? Just getting to know all the details, because I went in very uneducated into the whole process, and so it freaked me out, and I was like, whoa, hold on, time out. I gotta learn about all this stuff. And we lost a lot of time by kind of going through all these other processes and everything. Maybe we shouldn't have elongated, So I think just educating yourself, getting opinions. And I think the most important thing, I think Scott kind of alluded to it earlier, is I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. Like I said, all 24 of my couples friends, they were just like boom, boom, boom. Like they had no issues. Right. So I think it's finding a forum. And I think things like this, like podcasts, I know there's a lot more forums, and it's a lot more, even in the last 4 or 5 years, I think it's become a lot more openly discussed in there, publicly, and very acceptable is not the right word, but I think it's more out in the open, I should say, than it was. So I just think finding that's important, someone to bounce things off of. I didn't find that till really late in my process, just by having and talking to some friends that I hadn't talked to in like 3 or 4 years that were going through the same thing, across the country or whatever. So I think just getting some real life experience, kind of like what Scott and I are talking about, and know that there's going to have to be a little bit of patience. It's going to be a little anxious, but I think just getting all the knowledge you can and all the stories from other folks that have been through it will be super helpful in kind of knowing how to manage the process and knowing how to support, your significant other in whatever way you need to as you move through it. So I think that's a really roundabout saying about just make sure you have a support structure around you and kind of having all the knowledge you can, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a community that not everybody was jumping to be a part of, but it's becoming a lot more, when you have it, you're grateful for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. What about you, Scott?
Look, for me, nothing about the process was what I thought it was ever going to be. And I never thought this was going to be my process to begin with. But I met the woman I wanted to start a family with. And she is the greatest mom I could ever imagine. And to get to that point, it took a really circuitous route, but we got there. And there are things I wish I had done differently. There are things that I prioritized that weren't even slightly important. That was part of our journey. And it's not for me to tell somebody that's not important. Maybe it is for them. Maybe it wasn't for us. But I am so glad we ended up in the place that we are. And I think it's like, if I look back on everything, the thing that like now that I've got like a kid that's going into kindergarten, which is absurd, and a little girl that also thinks that she's going into kindergarten.
Yep.
To look back on the process, oh man, there's so many things that we agonized over that I now look back on. I'm like, hey, let it ride.
Let it ride.
It's so consequential at the time, and there were things that we just agonized over that today, it wasn't what I thought it was. And I guess like the one thing I would reach back to myself and say is like, hey, buddy, like all the decisions that you think are so much, no matter what you did, you got it right.
Yeah.
You got it right. Like, you don't have a bad decision there. Follow your gut, follow your instinct, and at the end of the day, you're never gonna say, I did something wrong there. is all right. And if I could just throw one more thing, there's going to be a time that my kids sit here and watch and listen to this podcast, and there's going to be like right now, Nolan's 5 and about to go to kindergarten, and Evelyn's about to be 3, and there's going to be a lot of discussions that we have in the future that have to do with this process and everything that we've gone through, and we aim to be as transparent as we can possibly be about it. But the one thing that we really want to make sure that they understand and know is that they didn't have the traditional path to being here, but the path that they took had so many people that they'll never know that had such a commitment to making sure that they were here, and that before they ever set foot on this earth, they had so many people that were so excited to welcome them here, and they had so many people that gave so much of themselves in some physical ways, some emotional ways, in a lot of ways. They gave everything that they could to make them be a reality, and we are both, my wife and I are both, so very thankful for that gift that they gave to us. And I just want to say thank you. I will never meet so many people that had a hand in that, but if they ever happen to see this, thanks so much. It really means just everything to me.
They're special. There's something special about that for sure. Yeah. Thank you guys. Okay. So final question. For those who know me, they know I have a very dependent relationship on coffee. I have switched it up and I'm drinking tea.
I got an espresso when I walked in here. So
there you go. There you go. You were ready. So I always love to ask this morning, what filled your cup? Literally or figuratively, what was the thing that filled your cup this morning?
Brent, can you start? Because I got.
Yeah. I know. I'm trying to get my mind going here. I'm like, it all blended together this morning. I feel like. No, I think it's funny right now. Let's be honest. Like both our kids are 3.5 and about to be 2. One's about to be 2 in July, right? The little girl. So right now they are in 100% mommy phase. Like everything's about mommy. Nothing. That no one wants anything to do with daddy right now, which is fine. I get it. It's a phase, and there's points and times, right? And so this morning, I was able to get her up. Sometimes it's I want mommy, whatever. But I got her up, and she just wanted to get up and just cuddle me for 4 or 5 minutes, before I even changed or did anything, So we just walked around the room and just hung out and, did whatever. Unfortunately, I used to get that every morning, and now I get it maybe 2 out of 2 or 3 mornings of the week. But
so it makes it just the more sweet.
It makes it just more special, right? So it starts your day off right, for sure, rather than them screaming at you right when you walk in the room. So I'd say that filled in my cup, and then. Same thing with my boy. He was super sweet this evening. Just being very loving, cuddly. Which he's a 3.5-year-old boy, so that very rarely happens.
Those cuddles.
Yeah, so that was kind of it was a good day today to be daddy for sure. Most of the time I'm the one. No, daddy, you go away. But it was.
Today was your day.
Today was my day, so it's good.
So when it's not today. It's the answer to your question isn't today, but it is one of those things that just like stops you in your tracks, right? So it was about 5 days ago. My son brought home a collection of terrible artwork from school. And one of them was this like little worksheet that had like math problems on the front. And he showed it to me, and I was like, "Great, buddy." So one of 1,000 ones they brought him. But he was like, "No, not that one. Turn it over, turn it over." And so I did. And on the back of this worksheet, it had a heart the size of the piece of paper.
Yeah.
And it had 2 windows on the top, 1 window on the bottom, and a door right down there at the bottom. And it had a little like stick figure on the side and a little bit smaller stick figure on the side of that. And he said, "That's our house. That's our house." And I was like, "Well, tell me about that." And he's like, "That's my room. That's Evelyn's room. That's you, and that's Mom." And to him, our house was a big giant heart. And yeah.
Yeah, that's got to make you feel real good.
Like I it truly doesn't get better than that. And
nope.
And you know, so as we talk through all of this, all of the process, all of everything from the day my wife and I met in a bar to seeing a picture of her in the middle of leukemia treatment, to having our heart ripped out a few times through the process of trying to start a family and to having it work out. We got there.
Yeah, and you got your heart house.
It couldn't, man. It's a feeling that I couldn't. I couldn't.
Can't put words.
I couldn't imagine. I truly. There was no part of my being that could have imagined what that felt like.
I love that. That's gonna fill your cup for a while.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, I am so grateful for your time, for being vulnerable and sharing your story, and just and I am just so happy that your story, both of y'all's, ended in a heart house. And I'm so grateful for you both, and being willing to tell just your journey through this whole process. So thank you guys so much. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Me, You, and Who. We appreciate your time and hope you enjoyed our discussion today. As we wrap, we would like to remind you of some of the ways that you can stay connected with us and be part of the Me, You, and Who podcast community. Firstly, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode and can stay up to date with our latest content. But that's not all. We also have an exciting YouTube channel where we share some bonus content, behind the scenes glimpses, and video versions of our episodes. Head over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button there as well. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when the new episodes go live. And for more exclusive updates, engaging discussions, and a chance to connect with fellow listeners. Be sure to follow us on our social media accounts. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Create a Happy Family. If you're interested in finding out more about creating a happy family, please visit us at www.createahappyfamily.com. Thank you again for being part of the Me, You, and Who community. Your support means the world to us. I can't wait for you to join us next time as we continue to share stories and journeys of creating happy families.